You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. Join Steve and his guests every week as he staggers from Georgia to Maine.
Hi, and thanks for coming back again to Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. Well, I'm still on the trail, but something new has happened this month, and I kind of want you to listen to it. When I hit the trail in 2014, I soon discovered that I come with the wrong water filter. Everybody else had a Sawyer squeeze. Eventually, I bought a squeeze, and I loved it. I'm going again this year, and top of my list of things to buy was the new micro squeeze filter by Sawyer. Like all Sawyer stuff, it just works. You can filter up to 100,000 gallons, and their full-size squeeze filter comes with a lifetime warranty. Last year, believe it or not, more than 4 million people got clean water through a Sawyer water filter. But if you think that Sawyer is just about water filters, you could not be more wrong. Nope, they supply everything to protect you, both in the backcountry and the backyard. Protect your gear and clothes as I did with their permethrin fabric treatment, which is 100% odorless after drying. With all the ticks and bugs around, this is an absolute must. They also provide sunscreens and first aid products. Find out more by visiting Sawyer.com. How about that? We got Sawyer. I'm so pleased they decided to support the show, and they're going to be with us for April and May, and you never know, they may stay a little bit longer. It really has been quite the week. It's been another of those times, I think, where I realise something about myself and I made changes. I think when you come on these journeys, you need to be prepared to be flexible and to make changes as you find them. And I think I have, and if I'm honest, I think I've been pushing myself a little bit too hard and probably trying to keep up with people who really I had no right trying to keep up with. I know that I had that little tramley until Newfound Gap, and they've gone on, and I've kind of stayed in touch with them a little bit. That's Stormtrooper, Deadpool, and Boomer, and I'd love to catch up with them, but they're ahead of me now. They're probably a couple of days, maybe 3 days ahead of me, but that's okay. But also I was kind of trying to keep up with a guy I was hanging out with as well, a guy called Coco, and really I learned this week that I shouldn't do that. And, well, you're going to hear what happens. Let's start with the first day, which was day 32, I believe. Day 32, Hot Springs, mile 274.8 to Log Cabin Drive, mile 291.3, a 16.5 mile day, which for me is quite a day. I'd had dinner at Elmer's the night before, at Sunnybank Inn, and I really, really wanted to speak to Elmer, and he told me I could speak to him after dinner, so I couldn't include him in last week's episode. But I don't know, dinner finished and Elmer and I didn't speak, so frankly I thought I'd lost my opportunity, which was kind of sad really. I did actually speak to a couple of people, but you're going to hear about them later actually. The following morning, Coco got up early, so did I, and we went across back to the Smoky Mountain Diner for another calorie fest. 2 plates of eggs. I can't remember what we had actually. I think I had country fried steak the day before. This time it was ham, biscuits, gravy, eggs. Oh, it was just awesome. So we had a nice little chat together. This was about 6 a.m. And I got back to Elmer's. And Elmer was there with the 2 guys who were helping him. And I said to him, any chance we could speak before breakfast, Elmer? And he said yes. So I took the opportunity to speak to a trail legend, as far as I'm concerned. Here's Elmer. Okay, I'm sitting here. I'm very honoured to be sitting here in Sunnybank Inn, which was a highlight of my first trip when I came in 2014. I'm sitting here with the man himself, Elmer Hall. Hi, Elmer. Thanks for talking to us.
Hey, good to see you again.
Well, it's been, you've been doing this a long time, and when we had dinner last night, you were talking about Earl Schaefer, and you met him on his second trip. What was your impression of him?
I was very impressed. He was a very interesting fellow. He had a great sense of humor. He liked to write poetry. Most people don't know that, and recite his poetry to hikers. It was a simple kind of poetry, but interesting. And he would play a guitar and sing ballads sometimes.
Rather nice.
He liked to entertain hikers.
And for those of you who just read in the guide, Sunnybank Inn and Elmer does this 5-course vegetarian feast. And I'm not a vegetarian at all, but I loved the food last night. How long have you been doing that?
Well, I hiked the trail in 1976 and stayed here at Sunnybank for 3 days and got to know the town. And that's when I came back a couple of years later and took it over. But what was the question?
When you
started cooking,
started doing the vegetarian feast,
right?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Well, I had been a vegetarian since about 1970, and had actually run a vegetarian restaurant in Durham, North Carolina, before hiking the trail. And so as soon as I came here, the menu became vegetarian. So that was 1978.
You've been doing it all the time since then?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize that. Is that every day?
Not every day, but every other day.
Perhaps. Oh, right.
Depends on what guests and what hikers are here.
Of course, yeah. And I was here last night with a bunch of other people, and Elmer starts, and what is so different about this place is Elmer starts asking questions. we have to all speak up, which is a great way to get to know each other. Was that the similar sort of thing? And is that you've been doing that the whole time since you've had the place?
We have, yes. Actually, I grew up that way in my family. There would always be a question at dinner time to get a conversation going among the family, and I just kept doing it as I became an adult.
I was thinking this last night. The question last night was, who would you want to spend your time on a desert island with if you could spend it with one person? I was late for dinner, for which I apologise. And I actually said nobody. And you gave a name. But do you ask the same question every time, or do you just have it? Oh,
no, it's different every night.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah. Sometimes if you were born at another time in another place, what it would be. I have almost a book full of dinner questions.
But it's interesting. It does instigate a conversation with people, doesn't it?
It does.
Which you often don't get. And one of the things I've noticed on the trip this year, which you may be interested in, is this coverage. The cell coverage is so easy that now people sit in shelters and they immediately go for their cell phones. And it's quite quiet quite often in the shelters.
Yeah, it's kind of sad. It's destroying conversation, which is a great part of human life, I think.
So how many rooms do you have here?
14, but we only have 6 that we actually rent out to hikers.
Oh, right. And there are some, because I was lucky enough to get a private room last night, which I loved. Plenty of room in plenty of room in the rooms there. There's antique furniture all around you. There's a great shower. I really could not recommend this place more highly. So what's the future for you? How long are you going to keep doing this?
Well, I've been here for, almost 40 years, and I'm so thoroughly rooted here. Right. I don't really have any desire to move or do something different. So I'll probably end up here. I'll probably work till one day I fall over.
Because you are in your 80s now, aren't you?
I'm 82.
You're 82. Bless you. Because there's two young guys, Scott, I can't remember the other guy's name.
Galen.
Scott and Galen, both working here and helping Elmo. The place is a very welcoming place. You come to the house. I came to here yesterday, and you were out, and it just says open on the front door. So I wandered in. I actually used the restroom, without asking. It's such roots in I think old fashioned comfort. I'm looking around the room we're in now. There's books, there's a guitar, there's a chess set, there's rocking chairs. You're going to find it one of the most comfortable stops on your journey. So I would highly recommend you come and see it.
And a happy dog that you can pet.
Oh, there's a very happy dog, which I don't know whether you know, and it probably doesn't bother you, but I was sitting opposite you yesterday, and when I got down late, it was sitting where my feet should have been. So I had to move my feet around. But look, I thank you very much for your hospitality. I've thoroughly enjoyed spending my time here twice now, and you never know, I might even do it a third time one day.
Great. Good to see you again.
Thanks so much. What a nice guy, eh? He such a sophisticated fella. He always gets a conversation going over dinner. He asked us who we wanted to be on a desert island with. I think I was the only person who said, I don't want to be on a desert island with anybody. You never know, you might actually hate them, mightn't you, really? So everybody else had sensible answers, but I was late to dinner, unfortunately, and I kind of just threw that one out there. But I left Elma and Hot Springs behind. And you go through the town, you then just cut down by the river, and you walk by the river for quite a while, actually, before you turn up. And then it is quite a tough climb. But once that climb's over, there's just ridges and ledges, which I really, really enjoyed. And it is really, really well maintained. I was already feeling the difference of the type of hike we were on. The Smokies were pretty brutal, pretty tough, and vast. There's more nuance, I guess, to the hike around here. And there's actually a pond which was dammed. It would have, if they'd broken the wall, it would have sent tons of water going down into a valley, I guess. And there's a bench there, so I just sat on this bench, and it just seems more relaxed there. I don't know what it is. And then when you climb up from the pond, and there's this little short walk on a dirt road, and there's a few fields all around. It is so darn different to the Smokies. Coco had told me about a place called Hemlock Hollow, which he was intending to stay at. And I thought, well, the shelter was about a 10-miler. And I thought, well, I might as well try to get a bit further. And so I got to the shelter I was going to stay at, and there was no one there. And that made my mind up for me. It was about 3:30, 4 o'clock, something like that. I had about another 5 or 6 miles to go. I thought I could do it because it's mostly downhill. And I was really was hiking well and going very well. And then I came across this guy and his wife providing trail magic, a guy called Grizz and Mama Bear. They offered me, I had a Mountain Dew and a muffin, but I was aware I had to go. So I felt terrible actually having to go on. But Grizz turns out to be a guy called Dale Barnes. He's a singer-songwriter, and he looked the sort as well. And he didn't have his guitar with him. He said he would have loved to have played for me, and I wish I could have recorded it. So it was one of those real shames, you know. I'd met a guy who would have been great for the show, but I couldn't stay around too long. He didn't have the guitar, and I had to shoot off, I'm afraid. I got down in time for the lift. I think it was at 6:30 from the owner's son. And I sat in the back of a flatbed, something I did quite often on my first trip in 2014. So I was quite used to it. Didn't bother me at all, actually. And we got to this Hemlock Hollow place. It's only about 3/4 of a mile away from the trailhead. And it was nicely set up, actually. There were various individual cabins. There was a bunkhouse. But I decided I wanted a tent. And I wanted a tent underneath this pavilion. So if it did rain, my tent wouldn't get wet, which would have been pretty nice. And Coco was also in the pavilion. And there's lots of straw in there. And Coco cowboy camped, literally putting his, I think a Tyvek, some sort of ground sheet down, and putting his sleeping bag on top of that. I would not have liked to have found a little mouse or a little rat in my sleeping bag with me the following morning, but he apparently didn't. The place also had a great supplies. You could get pizza. It was a very, very nice place to be. I really enjoyed it there. Water by this running river. I highly recommend Hemlock Hollow. I really do. And in fact, I had the best night's sleep of the trip so far, bar none. Best in a tent, in a shelter, or even in a bed. It was my best night's sleep. So I felt really, really good. But I had got very, very tired that day. But that was the end of day number 32. Day 33, Log Cabin Drive, mile 291.3, to Flint Mountain Shelter, mile 308.5, a 17.2 mile day, my longest day so far. This proved to be, I guess, quite a day for me because I made a decision eventually as a result of this day. It was absolutely glorious weather. It was beautiful, beautiful sun, warm all day long. We ran into something we hadn't seen before, though I recall from when I went in 2014, signs giving us alternate routes in case of bad weather. Well, that certainly wasn't the case here at all. The first 5 miles from Log Cabin Drive were uphill, but it was climbing about 2,300 feet to take us up to 4,600 feet in the process. And so that was about 500 feet a mile, which is very, very doable. So while it was all uphill, it was kind of enjoyable. And we got up there. I was with Coco again. We got out, we were hiking. I was hiking quite strongly, and I think we got up that 5 miles in about 2.5, maybe just over 2.5 hours, which is pretty darn good, a 2 mile an hour hike for me anyway. And then we saw the big Fire Scold Knob bypass, and I'd totally forgotten this was where that was, because this is a great example of where you've got to take your views when you have them. I did this trip, obviously, in 2014. The day I went up here, it was socked in. It was cloudy, horrible, really unpleasant. And I saw the bypass, and I thought, well, it's not raining, so even though it's foggy, I'll still go up there. Within 100 feet, I guess, of starting, it started pouring. But being a bit of an idiot, I guess I carried on, and there was lots of rock climbing and not jumping from rocks. My memory says that I was jumping from rocks, but I don't think I really was. But there was some very, very intense climbing up there. But of course, this time there was no excuse. The weather was fabulous, so you could see everything. And I absolutely loved it. It was just so glorious. The views all around, Tennessee on one side, North Carolina, I guess, on the other side, on this huge ridge. And I saw some people up there, a couple of day hikers, had a chat with them, and we could see for miles and miles. It was one of those days, once again, where I've seen something now that I didn't see first time. So I was so delighted. And then there was Howard Seat. I think it's called Howard Seat. Apparently there was a local guy for the Carolina Mountain Club, or Carolina Club, who maintains the mountains. He did a lot of stuff over the years, and one of the things he wanted was to move a huge rock, which he'd identified as a really good place to have lunch. And it's called Howard Seat, and it's got a plaque on it. And when I got there, Coco was sitting on Howard's Seat, looking towards Tennessee, eating his lunch. And it's a magnificent view, as I say. So he nearly finished, so I took over and sat there and had my lunch myself. And he took a really good picture of me as well, which I might actually put in the show notes. Because I've been trying to keep up with other people, I guess, I convinced myself that missing the Jerry Cabin Shelter would lead me an easy downhill to the Flint Mountain Shelter. It really, really wasn't. There was another bypass. I can't remember where that was. I think that was Big Butt. And once again, there was lots of rock climbing and pulling yourself up and so on. It was tough. And I struggled badly. Even though it says, even though the profile shows like it's an easy downhill to Flint Mountain Shelter, it really, really wasn't. I stressed my knees. And frankly, I realized by the time I got to the shelter that it was just too much for me. I was exhausted. I was so exhausted. I say I was nearly sick. I felt sick because I'd really overdone it. I knew I'd overdone it myself, and I was angry with myself. There was rain forecast for the night, and there were two young brothers of 18 and 21, I think they were, and an older guy at the shelter, just plus me and Coco. So there was plenty of room for me in the shelter. The forecast was for rain, and so I thought, well, yet again, I won't go in my tent, which I prefer, and I'll just go in the shelter. It cooled down very, very quickly. I got into my bag, had a terrible night, and it poured down with rain all night long. So that was a pivotal day for me, day 33. Day 34, Flint Mountain Shelter, mile 308.5 to Sam's Gap, mile 319.6, just an 11.1 mile day. I had a bad night. It had poured all night long. It was a wet morning, but I'd made a plan. I was annoyed with myself for trying to push myself when I knew I knew better, really. I knew I can do the 12, 13, 14 and 15 mile days relatively straightforward. I think I'm pushing myself a bit further than I need to, and I need to step back on that. And I'd made that plan. So the forecast was for the next 2 nights to be freezing cold. And frankly, I wanted to get out of it, and I wanted to do some shorter miles for a few days. One of my buddies, Bruce Matson, RTK, told me about a place called Cantaroso Farm with Mike and Peggy. And he said, if you want to get off the trail for a little while, it's a lovely place to be. So I decided to really go for it. This was my plan. I was going to go from Flint Mountain Shelter to Sam's Gap. Then I was going to get picked up, hopefully, if I could get hold of Mike and Peggy, and taken back to the cabin. The next morning, they were going to take me back to Sam's Gap. And of course, I wouldn't have to carry as big a pack because I'd be going back to the cabin again that night. I was then going to go to Spivey Gap, where I'd be picked up again. And then I'd stay a second night at the cabin. And then from Spivey Gap the next day, which in fact is tomorrow morning as I speak, I'd be going and getting into Irwin eventually. Now, this is slower than some people, but I feel I really needed this. And of course, for it to work, I needed there to be place in the cabin for me to do this. And I kept my phone on because I could not get a signal, and eventually heard a noise, which meant my phone was had service. I called Cantaroso Farm, spoke with Mike. It was really helpful. Told him about my plan. He said, "Yeah, we can do that," and got myself a place in the cabins. So I felt so much more relaxed straight away. There's a nice downhill start from the Flint Mountain Shelter, which was the best part of the day, actually. I was really relaxed and going well because I knew I wasn't pushing it. I didn't need to push it. There were 2 good climbs, and the first seemed like we were circling the mountain for ages, and the rain was intermittent, and when it was coming down, it was quite strong, but then it would stop, and then it would start again. But there was nothing that really fazed me. I've noticed this, by the way. When I hiked this first time, I was always being passed. I was pretty darn slow, to be honest with you. I don't get passed by many people these days. I think because I started so early, we're ahead of the bubble that's bound to engulf us shortly, I'm sure. But I hardly saw a single soul all day. And that happens to me quite often. I don't see more than 3, 4, 5 people all day long when I hike. And it's kind of surprising, actually, but that's the way it is at the moment. I guess it's going to change. I'm about to be engulfed by this mass of people, but we'll just see how that goes. I knew my timing. I knew when I was supposed to meet Mike, and I went for a spot of lunch at a shelter about 2 miles from the end. And I knew I had time, but I started chatting with an older guy in the shelter. And you know what us old guys are like? We just talk and talk and talk. And, well, we were talking, and I suddenly noticed I had about half an hour to do about one and a bit miles. And in the end, I was hurrying to meet up with Mike. I got there about 5 minutes late, but he was there. He was very relaxed about it at Sam's Gap. And he drove me to Cantaroso, and I had a cabin actually with 5 beds in it, which I didn't need at all. I had a shower and I had a pizza from the house. I tell you, I went to bed that night feeling so much happier about what I'd done and more comfortable with myself for the next couple of days. And now we're on today, day 35. Sam's Gap, mile 319.6 to Spivey Gap, mile 333.1. This was a freezing morning, but it turned out to be one of my best days so far. Mike told me that it was 25 degrees Fahrenheit when we were leaving, and that was well down the mountain. He said I reckoned it was going to be in the late teens when I got up the mountain. Mike took me back to Sam's Gap, and I just set off. And I felt good. It was freezing cold, as I say, but I felt pretty good myself. And I noticed that the mountain was frozen solid. The ground was really, really hard. You know, my poles weren't digging in at all. I met a guy coming towards me. He was carrying 60 pounds of sand on his backpack. He was training for some hunt he was going to be doing in the future. And he had 2 Dobermans. Those of you who know about my relationship with dogs, I don't like them and they don't like me. And one of them bit me in 2014. And one of these flipping Dobermans, they all look like a small horse. It was barking violently at me the whole time, but the guy just kept pushing him, pulling him back, and I don't know. I think dogs just want to kill me for some reason. I don't know why. Now, this guy told me that there were 8 deer a mile ahead. So I really started watching out for them, but of course they can hear me anyway, I'm sure. My poles click, obviously on the harder ground and the rocks. But I really enjoyed my lighter pack. I know some people don't like this thing called slack packing. I don't care. As far as I'm concerned, I carried my pack and everything I needed that day, which did not include my sleeping gear, all my food I've been carrying, and tons of other stuff. All I had in my pack was clothes and some food and some water, and I thoroughly enjoyed the lighter pack. I kept on going up, and I was climbing pretty well. The lighter pack, that certainly helps, and came to a beautiful meadow, and I took loads of photographs of it. And if you're following me on Instagram and YouTube, just look at these photographs. It just looks great there, and a couple of videos as well. And looking at the profile for the day, from Sam's Gap to Spivey Gap, looked like basically up for about 5 or 6 miles to Big Bald, and then all the way down back to Spivey Gap. And Big Bald itself is a meadow at about 5,500 feet. It is truly incredible. You get up there, and once again, I had a beautiful day for it. I remember last time I did this, it was a warmer day. It was sunny, but a warmer day, so I had the great views then as well. And a bunch of us just all fell asleep on our backpacks that afternoon, and that was glorious. But this time it was so beautiful, so I FaceTimed Diane just to show her, you know, she's seen these views, and I like the chance to show her some of these views as well. And then somebody from the night at Elmer's turned up. 2 young people who I was so impressed with at Elmer's. I'd like you to hear from them. Okay, I'm here at Elmer's with Ella and Jalen DeSantis. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Firstly, tell us your trail names, and then we'll tell people about you.
I'm Avo, which is short for avocado.
Why?
I just pack out a lot of avocados, and I had one that I packed out and it wasn't ripe, and it's been in my pack for like 200 miles. So,
oh God, nice.
Call me Avo, yeah.
and what's yours?
And I'm Shaggy.
If you can't, I know this is a podcast. I might actually take a picture of Shaggy because it's quite clear why he's called Shaggy. He's got some fairly long hair. Now, you two are kind of special. You're 18 years of age?
Yeah.
Yep.
Turn 19 on the same day. You are, in fact, twins, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yep.
What's the dynamic between the two of you on the trail? How are you finding it?
It's definitely interesting. It's actually surprisingly similar to normal life. I kind of thought it'd be different, but we get along normally, so it's been about the same, really.
Yeah, it's been pretty easy so far.
Yeah.
The two of you are actually going to college in August. They're going to finish the trail and then go to college. The separation is going to be so intense from this, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you find you're getting closer in many ways?
I think we definitely will by the end of the trail. But, a little bit, yeah.
And what are the logistics for the two of you? Do you share stuff, don't you? Pretty much.
Yeah, we share our tent, our water filter, our stove.
Right.
Yeah.
So and what sort of pack weight have you got?
We're both about
30 pounds.
Yeah.
With
food.
Water,
so
yeah.
Pretty damn. So what are you finding? You know, what's the best bit for you so far? Are you mixing with other people? Or you tend to be just the two of you together?
I've really enjoyed meeting the people.
By the way, just so you know, they look at each other every single time I ask a question. They look at each other as if to say, you say what I'm thinking or something like that. It's kind of spooky sitting out here talking to you. So the logistics of it.
I've really enjoyed it, meeting people, and we haven't really been able to stick with the trail family yet, but it's been fun to kind of bounce around and meet all the people on the trail.
Is that because you're going so fast?
We just
all of the above.
Yeah,
we go really fast, and then we take a zero, and other people don't. So it's kind of been.
And I was pretty jealous of you the other day. You actually cowboy camped on Max Patch with the sun out when about an hour and a half previously it had been socked in by cloud. You were so lucky to get up there.
Yeah, that was my
it
favorite
was so
night
beautiful.
of the trail so far.
Was it? Are you going to do more of that cowboy camping?
Definitely.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
So you're not nervous about things getting in your sleeping bag? That would drive me crazy, I tell you. I don't think I'll be able to sleep.
Yeah, that would. Now that you mention it, though,
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about it.
There are things out there.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. So what are you looking forward to? Are you looking forward to the whole experience, or is there a particular place you're looking to get the great pictures of McAfee Knob, or do you know much about the trail?
Honestly, I don't know a whole lot, but I'm looking forward to the hard bits. It's what I really enjoy doing.
You mean we haven't had those already? Oh my god.
Yeah, well, those are the hard parts, the really steep climbs and stuff have been my favorite part so far, or at least one of my favorite parts.
Oh really?
Yeah, I don't know. There's just something about finishing them that's satisfying.
Getting to the top of a hill, you're absolutely right. Yeah. And how are the downs treating your knees? I know you're 18, nothing affects you, but assuming something
I wish
might.
that was the case. Going downhill, I feel like 60.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. And they know how old I am, so shouldn't it? That bad, eh?
No, my knees have definitely been hurting going down hills, but the uphills are good. So.
And what about yours?
Yeah, I've had the same problem with my knees. We started out way too fast at the beginning, and my knees just completely gave out.
That's the thing everybody should know. They should not start out too far, should they?
And everyone
they
tells you that, and everyone still does it.
That's right. Yeah,
you still did it.
Yeah, and what about your folks? Are they very behind you on this, or are they kind of reticent about it?
They're super supportive of it. They're sending us boxes along the way, and they hiked a section of it, and so.
Ella actually said to me, she said, more than anything else, I think they're jealous.
Yeah.
They're definitely jealous.
They want to be out here hiking too.
Yeah, okay. Well, look, I hope you guys make it. It's lovely to meet you both at 18 years old. What a fantastic experience for you. And I admire your parents for having confidence in the two of you to do it as well. Yeah. And I hope you make it all the way. Right, thanks for talking.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers. Those kids, I was so close. Such lovely guys. I really enjoyed spending a bit of time with them. And they actually decided to stop and have lunch at the top. It was getting quite cold, so I warned them to stay warm, and I set off. I just love the openness of these boards, and I could see another one ahead. And I just wanted to go up it. This is lovely. You look ahead, you can see this meadow snaking away and the path snaking up there, and you're going to go in it. But one thing I had not been aware of, with this frozen ground and the sun really beating down on it, it was rapidly thawing, and it produced chaos for me. And I want to warn everybody out there, if it's cold again in the next couple of days, you're just behind me, watch out for the mud coming down from Bald Mountain or Big Bald. It is. I slipped, I promise you, at least 100 times in the next 2 or 3 hours on my way down. And some of these skids were 3 or 4 feet long. I must have looked like Dumbo on ice. I was all over the place. 2 of them resulted in falls. First one, I fell on my right side, banged my hip. Oh, gosh. Shouted out, "Number 5," which was my 5th fall, and just kept going. And then about an hour and a half later, I was relatively close. I thought I'd got rid of most of it. I just fell again, smashed my right hip again. But, shout out number 6 and then just carry on. There's nothing else you can do. And it really was a very tricky downhill because of this mud. I found it so tough. But now I've got to Spivey Gap. I got to it in time. Mike was there. I said I'd be there between 3 and 3:15. I got there about 3:08, so that was pretty darn good. I've worked out what my pace is now, and I've now just got the final 11 miles into Irwin tomorrow. Now, this break and staying 3 nights in the cabin has helped me. I'm probably not going to get another tramley for a while, but I really need to. I mean, I know I say this all the time, you've got to hike your own hike. I need to be hiking my own hike and not chasing down others. I missed my little trail family I had. I missed another one I had, a couple of days ago, which was Ugg, Lady Di, and Slip Rock. They all went different ways, so I may meet up with them again, but I've got to maintain my own pace and not push myself further than I need to. I'm going to be getting up into 15, 20-mile days even in Virginia, but right now, this was exactly what I needed when I needed it. I'll see you next week.